President Joe Biden exits the 2024 race for the White House, writing Sunday, "I believe it is in the best interest of my party and the country for me to stand down."
Yeah, with President Biden throwing his support behind Vice President Kamala Harris, the vice president is now the front runner for the nomination. And joining us now with just 106 days until the general election is the junior senator from Minnesota, Democratic Senator Tina Smith. Senator, thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thank you. I'm really glad to be with you this afternoon.
Well, thank you so much. I'm curious your reaction to President Biden bowing out of this race.
Well, when I first heard the news, of course, I was stunned. And then I was just overwhelmed with gratitude to think of this individual who has been in service to our country his entire life, and then to make the decision, I'm sure it was a very difficult decision, to step away from the campaign for the good of the country and for the good of our party, was just an act of such grace and generosity. And then, of course, I'm very excited to be supporting Vice President Harris, a woman I got to know when we served in the Senate together.
And let's talk about that support, Senator, because you wrote this on X, and I want to show this. "I proudly and enthusiastically support Vice President Harris, whom I believe is the very best person in this moment to unify the Democratic Party and lead us forward to victory." Why do you believe she is the best person for the job?
Well, first of all, as vice president, she has been shoulder to shoulder with President Biden during this most consequential of presidential elections. So I think the foreign policy experience that she gained, the work that she did to pass the very important legislation that has moved our country forward, insulin for folks who get their health insurance from Medicare, getting rid of lead pipes that are poisoning our children, such a consequential history of this administration. But then she brings her experience as a prosecutor, and she is a powerful advocate. And I have no doubt that she has the skills that we need to earn the endorsement, to win the nomination, and then to win the election and put the case to Donald Trump in a way that really nobody else can.
There are some people, though, that are concerned that there hasn't been enough of a process for voters to really weigh in on who this nominee should be. What would you say to those people?
Well, listen, this is an unprecedented moment. There is no doubt about that. But I would point to several things. The first is that the voters of this country elected her, 81 million people, to be vice president with President Joe Biden. Second of all the voters who voted for President Biden in the primary knew that she was the one who would step in if he was unable to serve. And I think, last of all, she has done such an incredible job. And in this moment, we can see that there really aren't any challengers emerging. Now, that might happen. She has to earn this endorsement. And of course, it will be up to the delegates at the National Convention to vote. And they're the ones who will ultimately decide who will be our nominee.
But, Senator, think about this. I mean, we just said it, just over 100 days until the general election. I mean, this is an uphill battle, really, to win this election. So what does the Democratic nominee, whoever it ends up being, need to do to defeat Donald Trump? I mean, what's the blueprint got to look like here?
Well, I think that we have to, of course, prosecute the case against Donald Trump. And here we have the perfect person to do that. We have a prosecutor demonstrating what has been so wrong and so terrible about the first Trump administration and what that might look like as we go into a potential second Trump administration. Just look at Project 2025 to see the blueprint for what that would look like. But this is not only going to be an election about what is so bad about Donald Trump, it's going to be an election about where we can move towards the future. One thing I would point people to, we know that reproductive freedom is one of the most important and galvanizing issues. And Vice President Harris has been our #1 advocate for making the case about why that's so important and how it is Donald Trump who is responsible for stripping away the rights of women and one in 3 women of childbearing age to be able to make their own decisions about their bodies and their lives.
Minnesota Senator Tina Smith, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator.